Well, good day, everybody. Welcome to this Data to Insights in 15 Minutes webinar. I'm Bill Balnave, the Vice President of Global Solutions Engineering here at Pyramid Analytics. Today, I'm going to show you how it's possible to glean helpful information and insights from your data without having to depend on others, without spending long hours slogging through spreadsheets and scratching your head and overtaxing your math or your stats degree, or begging, borrowing, pleading from your overburdened IT organization. As we look at doing this and how this works, this is especially a critical situation for analysts, managers, and folks who work in retail firms. The business needs to be able to make predictions and decisions quickly. You need to be able to react to consumer behavior, sudden disruptions to supply chains, things like Brexit and COVID pandemics and all of that. And while much of the reporting and analytics that you in retail do centers on the operational side of the business and managing that operational cadence, there are always points in time where questions arise and you need timely analysis and response. As in the example here, where I'm being asked by one of the sales leaders, maybe from one of our divisions, to understand the performance of the various promotions that we've done, say, over the past couple of quarters, and which customer buying channels are being helped the most by those promotions. So in the past, this wasn't something that was necessarily easily or happen quickly. First of all, I would need to typically go find some data. And while I've got a whole bunch of data that helps me on the operational side of things, I would go to maybe to marketing and ask for data on promotions, or go to marketing to ask somebody to then point me to the person in IT who owned that data. And so there's usually a couple of days involved in going and getting and finding the right data. Then I would spend a few days with extracts in probably Excel, of course Excel, looking through and dealing with the data in terms of formats and figuring out relationships and how to align everything together and what it means, just to get it to a place where I could now start to do some analysis and maybe look at kind of which dimensions were having the most influence, go through and understand kind of where the big kind of factors were, visualize all of this, and then provide this back to my management, who at this point would look at this and say, okay, it's been a couple of weeks, I don't need this anymore. Or, yeah, that's great, but now I have several other questions. Can you answer this? And this process would start all over again. And we'd keep going through this until we kind of finally got to what we actually needed. But now we've deployed Pyramid Analytics, Pyramid 2020 Decision Intelligence Platform. The entire process is very different. So it's eliminated the need for all of this back and forth. And what it's done is given a relative novice like me the ability to do some sophisticated analysis and do it quickly, easily. I don't have to understand code. I don't have to write SQL. There's no Python or R involved. And instead of having to wait on others or beg, borrow, and steal or plead, as I mentioned before, do a lot of a manual analysis, I actually am empowered to get this done myself. And I've got a platform, a solution that operates and works in the way that I want or need it to in order to actually get this done. So let me show you. I'm going to pop over to the Pyramid Analytics interface. And here I am, I'm logged in. And what Pyramid has done has organized this in a way that I get to use it in the way that I would normally work, right? So rather than having to drop into a dashboard or kind of a blank canvas or workspace or any of those kinds of things, I've got a set of functionality on the left-hand side that I typically use, along with links to favorite content and recent items and all those things. I've got my favorites up top, so the things that I typically go to. All the stuff that I had been kind of working on previously is here. And then finally, if I need help, I've got a wealth of interactive tutorials, meaning it will walk me through the product, online videos, all of those kinds of things. So this is really teed up to help me be successful, despite the fact that I would consider myself to maybe not be the most technical person, etc. So if I go back to the question that I got asked, which promotions have had the biggest impact on sales? I know in my sales reporting database, I've got some core stuff on how we do in terms of sales from stores. All of that gets loaded into, I know, a SQL Server database, and this is kind of where I drive my operational reporting from. I also know that the online data comes from a third party who hosts our e-commerce stuff, and we get a fee. So I know that those things aren't together, and because I need to provide some insight into which of the channels is being helped most by promotions, then I need to be able to pull all of that data together. And I know that I do that in the model module in Pyramid Analytics. And there are a couple of flavors of this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go walk me through the process of modeling. So one of the things that I'll tell you is that while I understand the data, and I'm pretty good with math and stats and things like that, I don't necessarily understand database schemas or how to write SQL or those kinds of things. But what I need is a way to pull all of this data together into a place where I can start to work with it without having to do all of that manually. And Pyramid helps me do that. So the first thing I'm going to do is let them know where I want this thing to be. And I'm going to call this promotional database just for the heck of it. Then I tell Pyramid, here's the data that I want to use. And I know, like I said, some of my sales and marketing and data, the stuff that I use for operational reporting, that's sitting in SQL Server. So I'll grab that. And then the extract I have, actually, I've just got, of course, an Excel spreadsheet that we get sent from our e-commerce provider on a regular basis. And I'll go ahead and grab that and upload that as well. Once I've done that, and I can see that both of these are ready, go to the next step. And the next step says, Pyramid's asking me, like, hey, I can see a bunch of data now. Which of these data sources do you want to use? And I can go through, and since I'm a little familiar with the data very familiar with the data on the product sales marketing side, I know what I want. I don't need this guy. I need the rest of these guys. This looks great. I click the update button. What Pyramid will now do is analyze, and the stuff that would take me, say, half a day, maybe even longer to do in Excel. In other words, how do I map all of this stuff together? Pyramid's done this for me almost instantaneously. And I can see I've got my online store sales orders as well as my store, my brick and mortar, my online as well as my brick and mortar rather. And I might even want to come up here and maybe make some adjustments and say, hey, this is these are my online sales, and that's great. And then I can say these are my store sales. Now I want to put this data to use, and like my favorite kind of Windows activity, I'm going to go click next, next, next. But here you can see there's a whole ton of other things that I can do with this. Should I get around to wanting to do it in terms of like even renaming fields and aggregations and all sorts of stuff, I'm not going to worry about any of that. And even security, I'm just to say at this point, hey, I want to go ahead and use this, and I click the button and I can save it. And we are now off to the races. So what Pyramid's doing is it's pulling that data together in the way that I've asked it to. It's putting it into an in-memory database just so that I can use it for the purposes of answering this question. At some point, if we decided to maybe make this part of our regular operational reporting, I would tell Pyramid to drop back into SQL Server, maybe into our data warehouse or our data lake, whatever that happens to be. And if I wanted to make adjustments to this model, do other things with it, I have absolutely the ability to refer back to it. It's sitting right down here. But at this point, now I'm actually been given the data to work with, and as you can imagine, I can go through and I can start to visualize and work with this, right? So, I can go get things like sales and returns out of my, store and out of my online stuff, and maybe I would break this down by, say, promotion category. All those things are here, and I can start to then kind of manually analyze what's going on. But Pyramid also gives me the ability to automate this process as well in a thing called automated discovery. And let me just flip over to show you that. So here you can see, here's my promo DB model, and I have the ability to click this button called Auto Discovery. What Auto Discovery is going to do is, first of all, this will run in the background. It's a process to go through and it'll analyze the data. First of all, Pyramid will take the model that's already been developed, right? Fields, dimensions, etc. It'll do some pre-processing to determine what's most relevant. And then it'll apply some algorithms, statistical and machine learning, things like partitioning, forecasting, clustering, correlations, trends, all of that good stuff. And then based on all of that, it will build visualizations so that I can then take a look and drop all of those things into a dashboard. So all of the baseline things that I would do and would probably spend kind of the week doing, I'm going to suggest that Pyramid probably does 60 to 70, maybe even 80% of that for me. And Pyramid's going to catch some things that I would not necessarily have caught. Now, given that I have direction from my leadership to examine promotions and look at which buying channels those are coming in from, right? I can have a pretty good idea and I can kind of direct my way, but there's typically things that I miss that Pyramid usually will catch for me. Now, rather than waiting for this process to run, and depending on the size of the data, this may take 20 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, etc. I've already run this. So I'm going to open up the job spooler, and you can see this ran last night, and took took about a minute, or a little more than a minute to go. And now, rather than having to kind of do the manual machination, if you will, and working through all of this, Pyramid's come back and said, hey, here are the interesting things that I found. And you can see off the bat, it's going to visualize for me. It's done some clustering and some correlation. And so now I'm going to just actually start to kind of scan through the things that are available so I can get a sense for what's here. So here I can looked at cost and price and size and channel. Channel may be interesting, something that I may want to come back to here, but really what I want to focus on is where it may have picked up some things on promotions. And here we go on kind of the third report. I can see a column chart that shows me promotions and promotion category, and it's looking at net profit. Okay, exactly what I wanted. And I would say, hey, I got lucky, but look, this is the stuff that's in the data, right? So I would expect Pyramid to find something like this. But now I want to be able to decide, like, how important is this particular visualization, and what does it mean to me, and maybe start to even just directly answer some of these questions. So I might want to do some basic slicing, dicing, and all of those kinds of things. All of that is available to do inside of Pyramid, and you can see here just kind of the full breadth of things that I could do manually if I want to do some exploring on my own. I'm going to go ahead and sort my promotions here descending, so I can see the promotion that had the highest amount of profit first, and I can see that this was a reseller promotion versus one no discount promotion, and I've got some other kind of customer related promotions back here. So it's a reseller promotion and volume discount over 60 that drove the highest net profit. But now I might want to ask the question, why? Where did this come from? Well, with a right click and going back to this, I can use Pyramid Analytics Explain feature to break down and get an understanding of what drove the net profit from volume discount over 60. And Explain opens up into a couple of simplified views, and I'll expand this a little bit and talk through what I'm seeing. So there is this allocation view, and then there is an influencer view. And so the first view that I'm seeing here, this is going to break down this 317,000 in net profit by category based on summation. So when I look at this, I can see that of the product categories that account for this net profit, bikes is the largest one. And I can see on the right, then a full breakdown of all of the various product categories that we use. I can see here, bikes, the clear winner. And as I kind of descend down, I can see which styles, et cetera. So now I can see from a product perspective, which products promotions help the most, maybe not necessarily kind of which channel, whether store or online, et cetera. I can pop over then to the other side where I can see factors from what we're calling an influencer perspective. And what I'm looking at here are which categories had the biggest impact from an average perspective and by what factor. So here you can see, first of all, what's interesting is that Pyramid Analytics went ahead and bracketed orders by revenue and have stacked them up here. And I can even apply all of the interesting things that I was doing on the other visualizations before, all of that here. And so I've done a little bit of binning to see that it was mostly orders over $1,530 that have accounted for this. Makes sense by a huge and tremendous factor. And then look at kind of overhead associated to those orders and revenue and on down below and all of that. But if I want to break this out and get even more detail, clicking the More button leads me to a tree breakdown. So now I can see, going back to the summations again, I can see kind of more depth in terms of looking at which category had the largest impact from a summation perspective. It's bikes and product category, and then use style. And if I want to amp this up a little bit, let's say I want to see more branches, so I want to see more breakdown, and I want to go even deeper, I have the ability to do that. And once I apply that, I can see fairly quickly, all right, now we've got some more interesting things. And one of the things that kind of pops to me here is the fact that stores, the store channel represents almost 70% of net profit through the best promotion. So now I almost have I have the direct answer to the question that I was being asked. And by clicking on this, I can even see more of a breakdown. Now, what's nice about this is a couple of things. First of all, you can see that I have a whole bunch of textual information right at my fingertips. So rather than me having to make the interpretation, Pyramid is doing that for me. If I go back here and look at some of these, you can see I even have the ability then to save this off if I want to, and actually add this into kind of subsequent, maybe even dashboards or reports or what have you, right? So right off the board, and I'm going to look at my watch now, putting aside the 5 minutes that I spent, or even maybe less than 5 minutes I spent up front talking through things, you can see here with that within less than 15 minutes, I was able to take raw data, do some baseline analysis for it, and even interact with that. So I can very quickly get to the questions that I had. And I almost have a direct answer, not almost, I do have a direct answer for it now. But let me kind of continue through and see what else Pyramid came up with. And as I click through, you can see it's done some other interesting things. I'm looking at margins and locations and geographies. And so it's organized a wealth of stuff for me here. And as I keep clicking through, I get to, all right, now I've got another set of interesting facts by promotion type. And I can see here breakdown by look like individual promotions and like a promotion type. And now this becomes interesting to me, but I'm looking at the visualization and I'm like, man, this is probably not how I would want to represent it or look at it. I want to be able to interact with this and maybe make some adjustments to it. And rather than, always have the option of editing this, I can take this and I can drop into the editor that I showed you before and make adjustments to it. But I also have the ability to have a conversation with this data as well through Pyramid's chatbot. So again, I don't have to know SQL to change queries, or I don't have to even necessarily understand a tool to rebuild. I've got the ability to work with it right here. So as I look at this, this I think makes more sense as a stacked bar chart. Let me get my mouse out of the way so I'm not. And so I, again, quickly change the stack bar, and Pyramid looks at that and, oh, yep, very easy to interpret, etc. So now I'm looking at promotion type. Maybe promotion type is important, but quite honestly, maybe I'm just going to stick to promotion itself. So you know what, I'm not really that interested in type at this point. So let's go ahead and remove. Right, and you'll notice that as I'm typing, Pyramid is actually helping me out in terms of understanding you know, what's going on, and it's offering up for me the field names and all of the relevant data. So if I'm not familiar with everything that's in here, Pyramid's going to help me out in terms of doing that. In this case, I know promotion type, so I can go ahead and say, hey, let's get rid of that. All right, now that's great. I'm going to make this a grid. So now we make it a table, and now I know I'm looking at returns, but maybe I want to add in some, obviously I want to add in the money side of things as well. So let's add in net profit. Okay, very cool. So I got net profit, I've got returns, I've got it by promotion, and now I'm going to go back to, let's make this a column chart. All right, now I think we're working with something that's fairly cool. And maybe I want to now save this off and keep it. The other thing is, in terms of doing the analysis, I get help here as well with something called Smart Insights. And by clicking on Smart Insights, I can get the basic statistical breakdown of what's going on. So I can see things like average returns and net profit and the relationship between net profit and returns. And even if I jump to, maybe not such, so maybe I want to add a little more into this. Let's, I'm going to add, say, top line revenue as well. And move it around. All right, and that's good. And so it's essentially at the end of the day, and that's all right, what I get now is some, again, natural language back to me to let me know what's going on in terms of, profit and net profit and all of those kinds of things. So again, all the interesting stuff that helps me go back to answering questions. And so when I'm done with all of this, and let's say, man, I've done my analysis, I've got what I want out of this. Now I need to go ahead and share it. So sharing it now is fairly straightforward. Rather than having to go back and say print this or drop it into Excel or anything like that, it's as straightforward as me going here to Content Explorer, working through the Pyramid interface and taking this folder and putting it into public content, and then turning on security and making it available to anybody I want. And then they have the ability to go through everything that I just did, as well as do all of their own analysis. So here you can see in a matter of 15 to 20 minutes, I was able to take raw data and go into Pyramid Analytics, turn it into something that's helpful, and even interact with it and continue on and do some of my own analysis, guided by a high degree of automation, auto discovery, and Explain and Smart Insights and NLQ chatbot. This is something that we call decision intelligence. And the promise, the idea behind decision intelligence is that we want to provide the ability for anybody in the organization to be able to do this. We want to be able to serve not just the data scientists, not just the BI developers, but the business analysts, the business leaders, the general managers, etc. And with Pyramid's decision intelligence, we combine the ability to prepare the data, the ability to enrich that data through machine learning, the ability to do some automate the data discovery processes I showed you here, and then the ability to pull together business level analytics. So now I can go and have a business level conversation, answer questions quickly, as well as obviously drive my operational reporting, and do it all in much less time and with much less stress than what I was dealing with before. So if this is interesting to you, and I'm sure that it is, I'm going to ask you if you've got questions, if you want to follow up. There's kind of 3 ways to do that. First of all, we're more than happy to walk you through what we call the 1-day Data to Insights Challenge. So, of course, you're going to look at a demo and say, hey, anybody can do that in a demo. Well, we'll put our money where our mouth is, and actually, you give us data, we'll walk you through the same exact process and give you the same type of results. If that's maybe too much for you to bite off, we're more than happy to schedule time with you one-on-one to do a demo and walk you through in more detail what we've done here and the expanded capability in the product. And finally, you can go to www.pyramidanalytics.com and you can download. There are 3 analyst reports that I would recommend. One is from Bark, one is from Dresner, and one is the critical capabilities. And then when you get into this, you'll see in all 3 how pyramid analytics is ranked highly when it comes to all 3 of those capabilities that we've encapsulated into decision intelligence. So thank you for your time today. I very much appreciate it. And I look forward to being able to talk to all of you in the future, whether it's through a challenge or a demo. And thanks again.